Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Glad to see that everyone came to the Northeast Trade Show again. I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm happy to see that. I see a couple of new faces in here. As with any one of the presentations I usually do, try and introduce yourself around. There's some very influential people that are currently in the room if you don't know them. Some guys who run websites you might see and go over. Tony from CCRE is here. Anthony from Auto Mediators is here. And I've probably seen a guy written up in a few magazines lately and done some ads and interviews is Tony Parker is also in here if you want to speak to him. And anybody ever utilize the Airbag website, Airbag Solutions? Gentleman Doug, who's here. Doug, you just raise your hand. He's here tonight if you guys want to talk to him about what his product does online, which can be useful for airbag information and stuff. Commitment to excellence through training and education. I know we've seen this before. You can actually follow us now. We actually have a website up. I finally did it. I got a friend of mine to take care of it. P&L Estimology is our website. Not a ton of stuff on there, but I'm trying to get it working a little bit better. Most of my articles from Hammer and Dolly will be on there as a link. So if you guys want some of those articles, I've known a few shops who have utilized those articles for negotiation purposes or in-house training. So there's a link there. You click on it. You click on the underscored article name, and it'll come up as a PDF. You can find us on Facebook, in LinkedIn, and also in Twitter. My name, for those who don't know, is Larry Montanez. I'm OEM P&L Consultants. I also work for an engineer called Line Technical Services. And we do all sorts of investigations on collision damage, collision repair, quality repair issues. And I'm currently the president of IIHS. I was elected by the board of directors. IIHS is the International Association of Collision Damage Analysts. If you have any questions about that, see me after the program. I'll talk a little bit about that. The P&L mission, training programs will assist the collision repair industry and insurance industries to work together during all phases of the physical damage claim in a spirit of fairness, intelligence, cooperation, and accuracy. This will help to serve the vehicle's owner, the mutual customer, with fast, safe, and pre-loss conditional repairs that are fiscally reasonable under OEM and industry accepted practices. Notice I didn't use the word standards, and we're going to obviously get into this a little bit tonight. Topics off limits, as usual, will be, of course, labor rates, parts or equipment prices, repair times, cost and profit margins, dividing up the market, boycotts or refusals to deal with anyone, judgment of specific shops' work, judgment of practices of a specific insurance company, policies and guidelines for claim settlements, and of course how repairers or insurers conduct their businesses. OEM procedures. Well, why are there OEM procedures out there currently on the market? Well, obviously the guy who makes the vehicle has to protect himself. We have to show we produce this particular product. We have to show why this product should be repaired this way or replaced in this particular fashion. Component failure supported by testing. OEMs have to go through multiple testings of their products. For example, this Lenovo computer I have here. They have a machine that opens and closes this computer a repetitive amount of times to see how long before that hinge breaks. What's their exposure on how long that hinge is going to last? The projector we're using here, how long will that fan still work under certain hours? You've probably seen some of the ICAR classes where they've gone and taken pieces of different materials, generally steel and aluminum, and put them through a rigorous amounts of salt spray, temperature, freezing, to see how long before this stuff starts to corrode with different types of coatings on it. So they have an idea of how long this is going to last. So this is supported by massive amounts of testing. Some computerized, some outside training. Some people might see that the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety will sometimes do some crash testing. They will utilize that type of information for what they will put out in their procedures. Government regulations. Well, the government mandates that these manufacturers of anything, not just cars, have to have some sort of procedure or information on how this vehicle has to be repaired, how this product gets repaired, how long this will last, and some sort of testing that has to be done. Consumer advocates. Well, obviously, how many people remember that Chinese car that we saw a couple of crash tests that they tried to sell in Europe, and everyone had heart attacks because the car crumpled up like a piece of paper? Well, that car obviously failed in Europe. They now have a better version of it, which is now passing tests in Germany, but that one failed. Why? Because they forced it to go through testing. Anyone here ever take an OEM training course at all? Anyone ever go to one? Okay. Have you ever taken an OEM training course that included a German version of the car? Like it's from Germany? Well, it was strange. I've taken certified in multiple different courses, as some of you guys know already. I have a shop I'm affiliated with that's sponsored by these companies, and I get to go for these training courses, which is really interesting. It's a little time consuming to me, but it's very interesting to get out of that. Well, the Audi, for example, the Q5, the pillar, the B pillar, is completely different from Europe to America because of our regulations on crash standards. It's actually 70 pounds heavier because it has an extra reinforcement in there to protect the martensite steel reinforcement that's already in there. So there's two different repair procedures between European Q5 for putting in the B pillar and American version of it. And that's all because of our crash standards on airbag deployment and safety of the occupants. So that comes from our consumer advocates that are required to do this. Insurance Institute for Highway Crash Testing, and of course the National Highway Transportation Safety Authority, or NHTSA, investigations and training also on, testing on this. Actually, anyone ever heard of accident reconstruction? Accident reconstruction, usually there's been a death or an injury. All those algorithms or mathematical formulas are all based on crash tests done by NHTSA, or the National Highway Transportation Safety Board. That's all based on that. Lawsuits and court decisions. Well, a lot of companies will change their mind on something because they've been sued. Other companies will change their mind. You guys want this, some seating, you get some seats here you can grab these and pull these out. I just got to leave this camera here, so if you guys want to grab these seats and pull them out back that way, you can. There's one back over there. Okay? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
The lawsuits and the court decisions will change the way a company will operate. Obviously, the lawyers and the HR department will say, hey guys, look, we got to change this. This is no good, or we got to come out with a new information. How many guys saw that TV special on, I think it was HBO, about the woman who spilt the coffee all over her legs? Did anyone watch that? That was pretty gross, wasn't it? I mean, it was pretty sad what happened to that poor woman. And rightfully so. I have a different opinion. Some girl spilled coffee all over her lower extremities. I was like, you kidding me? She got $2 million. Maybe she deserved it because it was a machine malfunction, not the fact that we all know that coffee is ridiculously hot. Now they say content's extremely, hot. You notice now coffee companies don't fill it all the way to the top anymore. Not only leaving less room for milk, but saving coffee on their end, but also it doesn't spill. And you notice the cups got a lot stronger now. They really are. They're a lot stronger, the cups. So those court decisions change the way we operate. Warranty defects attributed to design flaws. Listen, things happen. Last week, Jeff, the engineer I work with, we were out looking at an Audi. And Audi was actually there with one of their engineers. And the igniters for the engine of the car, there was an issue. They're catching on fire. We're getting a lot of these. And they said our first generation of these cars, I think it was the 07 or 08, we had a design flaw in the igniter. Well, the Chinese companies do what? Make knockoffs of them, right? And they make good knockoffs. They work really well. And the Chinese are so good at the engineering, guess what they also engineered into it? The defect. So this guy looks at it because he's down on a product liability case, and the engineer pulls it out and he shows it to Jeff, and Jeff goes, yeah, well, this is where the fire started. And he goes, yeah, I agree with you. He says, boy, you guys are in trouble for this. He goes, no, that's not one of ours. What do you mean? Here's one of ours. Here's the markings on it. Here's the shape of it. They designed it. They copied it, but they also copied the design flaw. So now what happens? Now you get what? A technical service bulletin that says what? You can't do this anymore. This part's been superseded. And that's warranty defects attributed to design flaws. OEM position statements. This is different than the repair statement. This is a position statement from the OEM. Why were these created? Once again, for your OEM liability protection. Component failure is supported by case studies. So we found that this particular part breaks down, or we've done testing on it. I'm sure you're all familiar with the position statements, and I'm going to bring up some of them in a little bit. Lawsuits and court decisions. Re-engineering design flaws. I think I just described one of the re-engineering design flaws in that. That also comes from refurbished rims. Not talking repainting rims. A lot of company allows you to repaint them. Actually, I don't even recommend you repaint the rim. I recommend you have somebody powder coat it, which is a much better way of doing it. It lasts longer. But bending, twisting, cutting, adding material, taking away material is not founded, not looked upon by anybody as a proper procedure. I don't care what you see on YouTube. Ensuring safe repairs, product copyright and trademark protection. That's been a big issue. Ford won a big case a few years ago with that, and now my understanding is it's back up in the Senate. They want to overturn how long you can have a trademark or a copyright on a particular part. And that's why you're starting to see now many of your headlights have what imprinted on it? An insignia, or you'll get the name of the company actually on there where it says Nissan. Would the car be put back to pre-loss condition if you don't put that particular light in there and it doesn't say Nissan on there? Well, no, you wouldn't. But who's it up to on what light you put in that car? The consumer. I own the car. I want you to put it in. I want to save money on it. I want you to do this for me. Well, the insurance company paid for this. Good. Write it on your bill that you put in aftermarket, and then do me a favor. Buff out the whole car and detail it. That'll make up the difference, won't it? Oh, okay, yeah, I got no problem with that. Once again, it's a contract between you and the customer on how you want to repair it. Do I recommend it? Probably not. Okay? You know, that's my opinion on that one. Acura, Honda, position statements from them. Alternative or aftermarket components, they do not recommend. Replacement of structural components, meaning used structural components, which is, if it's welded on, you should never use it used. And I've been in multiple court cases where, once again, when it gets to my level, where Jeff and myself get called into this, or any expert gets called in, all bets are off, guys. Only the OEM position statements or procedures mean anything. That's all the judge wants to hear. It's not your opinion. No one cares. It's what's written. We've been in cases where, you know what I'll say, look, a fender or a door, a used door, isn't going to really affect too much of this, or this. So we didn't look at that being the worst part of the job. What we found was the guy resistance welded or MIG welded on a panel that was supposed to be riveted. Or he went ahead and used the used part and caused a lot of heat damage to it. And on the metallurgical destructive testing, we found it to not be in the same parameters as an original panel. And that's where the problem comes in. So Honda Acura says that. Once again, collision energy absorption systems and reuse of components from salvaged components. So bumper reinforcements and obviously any component that's cut off the car, and then using a drill to separate panels to then put it on the new vehicle or the existing vehicle. Salvaged or used airbags. I don't care what anyone says. Anyone's been on any of my LinkedIn discussions? I've had wars with guys over used airbags. There's one way to test airbags. Does anyone know how to do it? Deploy them. That's it. That's the only way to do it, is to deploy it. New York State, you can't put them in. If you're a shop and you put them in, you got big trouble. Okay? I think Jersey's the same way. But it's legal to sell them, and it's legal to purchase them. I know, it doesn't make sense. Okay? You're allowed to buy a gun, you can own a gun, you can sell a gun, but you can't shoot anybody with it. So what good is a gun? Okay? It's like being a city cop. You might as well just throw it at somebody because you can't shoot anybody in New York. But salvage used airbags. And the only guys who have made an argument for the opposite side of it, it appears on these websites, have been guys who are just selling stuff. There was actually one person on there actually says, and you can find it on my LinkedIn, you can find the blog for it, or the whole thing. She actually said that she put her own kids in the car. So obviously, she should be arrested for being an unfit mother, in my opinion. Because there's nobody to test them. Yeah, I could test them all day long and tell you the ohms are there. And actually, one of the guys gave me a website where they certify. Wait, you get this now? There's only two places I know of in the United States that certify anybody. AWS, the American Welding Society, that was started back in the 1900s, and ASE, which was started back in the 70s. So those are the only two certification things that I know of that aren't school-orientated, like a certified public accountant. So they're going to certify somebody by four of their 6 procedures. James, what do they tell you to do that you have to do to it? Out of the 4 to the 5, 6 procedures, what is it?
Make sure it wasn't in a flood. Make sure the color matches. It's all visual.
Visual indications. You're certifying it by doing what? Looking at it. Can you guys tell? Now my tomorrow morning's class is based on doing pre-measurements of a car. Can you guys tell if there's structural damage to a car by looking at it? Unless it's severe, you can't tell, right? You really can't. Okay, how about this? How big is this? How long is this?
3.5 inches.
Well, I thought that was like 12. Okay. Help me out, guys. 3.5 inches. Is it? What happens if it's 2 3/4 inches? We don't know unless we do what? We'd have to measure it. We can't tell by eye. But this thing's going to certify something by looking at it. That sounds like I want to put that bag in my car. That sounds really good to me. Salvaged or recycled components. Steel and aluminum wheel repair. You can sand them and paint them. That's it, guys. No bending, no twisting, no doing nothing to them whatsoever. Sectioning frame components. Does everyone know that Honda has those sectioning procedures in the front rail areas? Doesn't exist. You can't just cut a rail wherever you feel like it. Because of the construction of the material, the type of substrates that are used to make that particular component, and the fact that airbag deployment counts a lot on that. Bonding. They don't allow bonding. You cannot bond anything on a Honda. Door skins aren't bonded only. How are door skins on? You fold the edges over. So it's a bonded hem flange. So that they allow. Also over the wheel well, they allow, or they have procedures, I shouldn't say allow, they have procedures for bonding material to be put in there. That's not considered bonding it on. Bonding is totally gluing the panel on. You cannot do it. It's considered an improper repair. Audi. Spot welders. Specific spot welders have to be used. Bench systems. Car bench, Carolina, and Select. And it's only a specific Carolina system with the proper measuring system, Evo 1, 2, and 3. If you repair it on anything else, like a Chief or an aircraft carriers, it's an improper repair. A data liner, improper repair. Get rid of that junk, guys. Upgrade your equipment. We're in the 2000s now. We have to get rid of all that old garbage stuff. Specific repair equipment, certain tools, drills, certain types of glue guns, or applicators, rivet guns. Specific training for the Audi space frame that has to be done. Specific training for steel. Actually, Audi has restricted parts on all their aluminum cars, and they're talking this year they're going to pull the B-pillar off all their steel cars because it's a martensite steel and you need a special welder to weld it in. Specific welding procedures. Specific repair or parts procedures or parts ordering procedures. OEM components and wheels. They do not. They forbid. Basically, as an Audi certified steel shop or aluminum shop, you cannot put anything aftermarket used on that car. It has to be factory only. Definition of structural repair. Actually, Audi actually defines what is considered structural repair in their website. And Audi's looking this year, they talked about it at SEMA, they might self-insure their cars that are sold through their bank. If you get a loan from them for a lease, or you get a loan from them to purchase, who owns the car? The bank, right? Well, the bank's going to tell you where you have to go now. And they're going to be able to direct you to whatever shop they want to direct you to, which is going to be one of their certified shops. It's not steering. They're self-insuring a car that they own. Remember, a leased car is not that consumer's car. It belongs to the dealership. It doesn't belong to the dealership. It belongs to the OEM if they banked it out of their bank. It belongs to Citibank, Teachers Federal Credit Union, Nino down on the corner who'll loan me the money at 3% interest a week, to borrow the money on it, okay? That's the guy who owns the car, the person who owns the car, not the customer who bought the car to you. Very important to realize who owns the car. BMW, spot welders, bench systems. Once again, Carolina Select or car bench. Specific repair equipment, training for the Groff combo. Groff went away in 2010. Now they have basically all aluminum strut towers on most of their cars. Specific training for steel. Specific rivet bonding procedures. Specific repair or parts procedures. Once again, you cannot use used on this. Only OEM wheels. Body filler thickness. Does anyone know what the BMW allowable amount of body filler is on any one of their panels? 2 millimeters. That's it, 2 millimeters, right in the repair manual. Anything more than 2 millimeters, the panel should be replaced. X5 and X6, because pedestrian protection is built into the hood. No hood, only paintless dent repairs allowed on the hood. You cannot put body filler on it. And that's the same hood in Germany as it is in the United States. Just extra distance in it. Specific steering gear damage. Basically anything German, if you do damage to one of the outer tire rods or an inner tire rod, you got to change the whole rack. No questions. And no, you cannot use a rebuilt, you cannot use an aftermarket. No, forget that. Specific PDR requirements, I just talked about that. Chrysler Jeep. Welding bond procedures. Basically everything on a Chrysler outer body panels, you have to weld bond it back together, or you can MIG weld it or resistance weld it still to this day. They got a little fluctuation. They're supposed to be changing it this year. Reconditioned wheels, that's a no-no also. Salvaged airbags, another no-no. Structural component usage, only OEM new parts, cannot use used. Use of heat during repairs, basically a no-no also, can't heat anything. Get torches out of the shops, guys, no reason to have it. Doug Craig said last year at a meeting out in Vegas that Chrysler might change the word to requirement. I'm not happy about this, but I am happy about it. The word requirement sounds a lot more official. Go look up the word requirement and go look up the word recommendation and go look up the word procedure and learn what they all mean. Because there's somebody out there now that's pretty respected in the industry, and he's saying that, well, is it required or is it recommended? And I think he's a little off in his saying of that, I'll be honest with you. I don't agree with it, okay? Because I've got about 25, 30 court cases where the OEM position statement or the OEM recommendation was all that was needed in a court of law, and the judge basically threw the case out, or somebody lost their case because of that. Specific PDR equipment that can be, PDR procedures. Ford and Lincoln, used to be Mercury. Aftermarket imitation components and lamps, no good. Remanufactured wheels, steel and aluminum. Salvaged airbag components. Ford only lets you buff your rims, you can't even paint them. Ford's really wacky. Open blend procedure. No open blends, Ford says. End of story. Clipping procedures. Well, I don't know anybody who clips a car. You're pretty much crazy if you do that now, especially with the material that's out there that these cars are made of. You can't clip cars. There's way too many windows you have to open up to get access to it. Back in the 80s, yeah, it was pretty much, insurance companies used to pay for it. It was almost like the databases had a thing in there. And there's guys in here, I know guys who've been in for a long time. You made a lot of money doing that. That was like, okay, it was slow. Let's go buy 2 cars and put them together. And it was easy because it was all mild steel. Salvage components, no good. Structural steel, structural repair sectioning. Ford, I'm going to help you guys out with this. This is a big area of misconception. A lot of guys call me that have purchased all data or went on Ford's website. Well, Ford doesn't have a sectioning procedure for this. Ford doesn't make a lot of sectioning procedures. Ford's procedure is, if there's no sectioning procedure listed in our repair information, it's replacement of factory seams or full part component replacement. Now, Ford has come up with some sectioning repair procedures. I believe Verifax did something for them, didn't they? At one time, I think with the Mustang, right?
Mustang rear rail and the Fiesta front rail.
The Fiesta front rail. They did some outside company, Verifax, did some testing and found out this information, presented it to Ford, and Ford says, we're going to run it through our computer animation, make sure it crashes the same way. And guess what? They went ahead, checked it, and says, okay, there's a repair procedure that can now be made. But there are ways to do it. If you buy the whole left side of the front of the car, you can just put the apron in if you want. You can drill it out and just put the apron on, even though it's sold as one whole assembly. Can be a little crazy to understand, but Ford allows that. Once again, specific paintless dent repair procedures. General Motors, which now is, funny, remember years ago this used to be like 12 companies? How many guys remember that? It used to be like 12 companies. Now they're down to GM, Chevy, really GMC, Chevy, Cadillac, and Buick, and gone are the days of Oldsmobile and Pontiac, and it's a shame. Salvaged airbags, no. Recycled OEM components. I really hated the fact that GM said this. Anyone take the iCar recycled parts class, which should take no longer than 3 minutes to teach? Okay, guys, here's all the OEM procedures that say you can't do it. GM says you can use used components. That's it, class is over. That's all that class should be, because otherwise the rest of it's a complete waste of time. But GM says you can use it, but not salvaged airbags. Reconditioned wheels. GMs do not allow reconditioned wheels. GM, funny enough, unlike other companies, you can bond a rear body panel on certain of their models. You can bond a quarter panel on if you want on certain models. No structural components, but rear body panels and quarter panels they allow for. Clipping procedures, once again a no-no. Specific paintless dent repair procedures. Hyundai, Mazda. Oh, is Larry going to give us something we don't know about? Kia also. I forgot to put Kia on here. Basically, aftermarket salvage components. That's all they're saying right now. These are 3 companies. Well, Mazda gives you repair procedures. Hyundai and Kia do not in this country. They do in Canada, but they don't do it in the United States. They do it in Europe. That's because of our liability laws, and they're not really producing it. They might change their attitude eventually, but if you go on All Data, Mitchell, I think CCC has something out now, it's pretty much nothing there. Mechanical stuff is there, but body stuff, they're kind of staying away from. So let's see if there's more to come with those. Jaguar, spot welders, bench systems, specific repair equipment. By the way, Chief is not recommended by anybody. Specific training for aluminum, for steel, specific welding procedures, repair parts procedures. They restrict parts also. No aftermarket or used parts or wheels. Lamborghini, basically it's the same thing as Audi, because basically Lamborghini and the Audi R8 are twin sisters. But they do have special repair procedures for carbon fiber, because the tub hub in the center area is made of carbon fiber. Mercedes-Benz, spot welders, bench systems, only car bench or select. That's it. No Carolina, no Chief. Carolina is approved globally, not in the United States. So right now, the only way to fix a Mercedes-Benz is to put it on a select or a car bench. You put it on anything else, it's an improper repair. Specific repair equipment, welders, tools, stuff like that. Specific training for aluminum, specific training for steel. The aluminum repair class for the SLS, by the way, does everyone know all the Benzes 2014 are going all aluminum? The S-Class is going aluminum. The E-Class is going aluminum 2015. Yes.
The next 5 models.
Yeah, the next 5 models are going all aluminum, like the SLS. The SLS, there's a 2-week training course in Germany just on welding it. You take a 1-week course here in America, then you got to fly to Germany for 2 weeks to weld. Anyone weld for 2 weeks? I've been to the Audi program. We welded for 3 days. I wanted to vomit. Okay? To weld for 2 straight weeks. The bench trainers, George and Greg, both says, I don't know what they're going to do to you, because they have to go out for it too. I don't know what they're going to do for 2 straight weeks of just welding. That's all you're going to do all day. And it's all aluminum welding. It's not steel, so you're even in a darker face shield. You got to use a 13 shade on that. Specific welding procedures. Specific repair parts procedures. OEM components and wheels. No good. And specific steering gear procedures on those particular vehicles. Nissan Infiniti, which includes Nissan Infiniti models and the Nissan GTR, which over in China and Japan is called the Skyline. Specific repair equipment. Currently owning the GTR, they just came out with a new program for Nissan and Infiniti, and it hasn't been announced, and I don't know what's going on with it, but I think they're going to pick an outside vendor to do their training for that. Who that is, I don't know. Specific training for aluminum. Currently, iCar does their aluminum training on the GTR, which it's got aluminum front strut towers on it. Specific training for steel. Obviously, the GTR, supposedly the other models soon. Spot welders. There's specific spot welders that have to be purchased for this particular vehicle. Bench system. Only the select bench. And this is the only one I've ever seen that says it's 7 hours to put that car on and off the frame machine. 7 hours total. And you have to own the jigs. A friend of mine in New Jersey went through the system, bought everything, spent all the money on the training. He's seen 2 of them, both of which were just key scratches. At another shop in Long Island I'm very good friends with, they went through the training. They haven't seen one yet. I don't think one's been spotted in Nassau County, Long Island yet. So it's not a very popular car all over the place. But the other vehicles from Nissan and Infiniti could be an issue. Remember, they kind of like bite off a little bit off of the BMW style in a way, Infiniti. So could be some questions about what repair process they're going to go through. Specific welding for the GTR. There's specific repair procedures for the GTR and the Infiniti and Nissans. OEM components and wheels. You cannot use aftermarket wheels. Actually, tomorrow I talk about a court case that was settled for $2.5 million when a wheel came off. Had nothing to do with body shops. Had to do with just chroming a rim. It was settled last year in California. Salvage components, no good. Porsche is identical to Audi, so I'm not going to read it because Audi, Porsche, all under Volkswagen and Lamborghini. So is Bentley. Toyota, Lexus, Scion. Specific repair procedures and cribs, collision repair information bulletins they're called. OEM wheels and components, salvage components, specific repair equipment, specific training for aluminum, and training for steel. Has anyone ever been through the Toyota training at all? West Caldwell does it over here. They used to do it out in Torrance, California. Some of you guys remember the guy who set up that program was Randy Buffetto. Might have sold you some of your car ladder equipment back in the day. Spot welders. Bench systems and specific welding. Volkswagen is identical once again. So OEM repair procedures. We have here this is from Honda, and it says high tension sheet steel caution during repairs. How many guys have some sort of resource for collision repair information? All data, each OEM website or something like that. All right, when you look at the materials, it's very important. Europeans, Americans, and Asian countries all talk differently about about substrates. What's ultra high strength steel in Germany and in most of Europe is really considered in this country high grade high strength steel, which can be a little confusing to people when you look at it and say, well, why is there a section procedure for ultra high strength steel on a Volvo? Well, that's because you have to look at the megapascal rating here. Basically, anything over 590, which you see a lot of this black stuff shaded out, the black stuff is about 85,500 psi, to give you guys an idea. Anything above 70,000 pounds per square inch, your welding wire won't hold together, because welding wire is only good to 70,000 pounds per square inch. So that's basically almost unrepairable. And you got to watch when you cut through it, because if you scar it or scratch it, it'll cause a fracture line on it. OEM repair procedures. Well, Toyota, as you see here, has this shaded area, which is basically the B pillar and a portion of the rocker, is over 590 megapascal. The gray areas are 440 megapascal, and the black is form material areas, which you have to refer to a different page. Well, with Toyota, on their front rail section, they have a sectioning procedure at a certain amount of millimeters rearward or forward from this principal locating point. Actually, 110 millimeters, as you can see here. The outside piece gets replaced in this area. What happens if I have damage at this particular area here? What do?
Change the rail.
Close. There's actually a procedure to do it right before you get to the firewall. They actually have that. But now the motor's got to come out. This procedure, the motor doesn't have to come out. It's in front of the rad support, basically. So there's a big difference. But what happens if I want to section it? I'm going to section it right here. Well, you'd still have to probably take the motor out, but on one side you wouldn't have to. Because you have enough room to do it. So is that a good procedure? See where I'm going with this? Repair standards are made up, or trying to be made up, by people who are trying to appease a different group of people who have no business being involved in collision repair. They're looking to save money on it. I love total losses. I'll be honest with you. There's more money to be made in a total loss than there is in actually repairing a car. I'll be honest with you. If you don't believe me, I can show you the numbers on it. OEM repair procedures. Ford, Lincoln. Well, here's the upper unirail. Here's the lower outer rail and the lower inner rail. And this is the bolt for the engine cradle. Well, I need this upper rail here, but I got to buy the whole piece. What do? How about this lower rail? I don't need the front portion of it. What do with this? Does anyone remember what I said about Ford?
The reason it's sectioning procedure replaced at the factory seams.
So the lower rails would have to be what? Put on in their entirety unless we have what? A sectioning procedure for it. Okay, we just can't blatantly cut anywhere we want. But with this upper rail, I have the upper cap piece, which is resistance welded on. I can cut that, I can drill that out. I have the backing piece here, and I have this rail here, or the apron assembly that can all be drilled out accordingly if need be, although I do need the whole part. See the difference on how you have to make a decision on these repairs? Here's a good one. This is a BMW 3 Series. We're going to replace the quarter panel on this car, right there. There's the quarter, here it is. How do we put this on? Do I mag it or MIG it on? Mag, remember, for steel, metal, active gas. MIG welding for aluminum. Well, I think the 3 Series, isn't that quarter panel still steel? So we couldn't use MIG welding. Squeeze type resistant spot welds? How about adhesive bonding alone? Rivets? How about rivet bonding? Well, some combination. Does anyone know the answer to this truly? What the procedure is? Well, before we do anything, we need an adhesive tube 5KB and adhesive 5K K5A. We need blind rivets N3, which is 17 of them, punch rivets N4, which is 26 of them, one electromagnetic compatibility screw, and a cleaner R1. You're probably looking in the area of around $500-600 in material before you ever buy the quarter panel. Now, you'll use your rivets in this area over here, rivets in this area, some bonding material here, glue and rivets here, glue and rivets here. You cannot weld this panel on. If you weld it on, it's what? Improper repair. And believe me, you can see that right away. You cannot do that. They've already tested it and found that they do not want you welding it on. Even though you have to have a specific welder to weld the rocker panel on. So you cannot weld those panels on. And in this area here, you can actually do welding. Approximately $600 in just material before you ever buy the quarter panel. Here's an S-Class Mercedes-Benz. Right? Is this S? Yes, it is. Notice in these areas here we have rivets. Does anyone work on Mercedes-Benzes at all? Do you know the rules for Mercedes-Benz? Anyone certified in Benz? At all? Anybody? Mercedes-Benz, where two dissimilar metals meet with each other, you will use adhesive bonding material at $30 a tube, and rivets, rivet bonding. In areas where metal meets metal, being steel, you will use only rivets. Unless it's on a flange, we'll use a specified resistance welder. And in the sail panel area, you will use silicone bronze only. Any other repair procedure is improper and incorrect. You cannot do it. Plus, I'd like to see how guys are going to make aluminum and steel meet up with each other on the S-Class. You got 50 rivets at equaling $200, and between the glue and everything else included, you got about $1,200 before you ever buy a quarter panel. That's just materials to put the panel on. $1,200 before you ever. That's just adding up the material you have to buy. Here's an E-Class. This is a steel quarter panel. Steel quarter panel on an E-Class Mercedes-Benz. Rivets down here. Silicone MIG brazing. How many guys own a silicone bronze or silicone brazier? Okay. Very funny, Mark. Anyone ever weld with it outside of the two guys who raised their hands? James, put your hand down. Okay. Not hard. Not easy. Once again, something different. We have to learn how to utilize it. Okay?
You learned that in Germany?
No. Yeah, you learn that in America here. You can do that. And in these areas here, these black dots, all these here are resistance welds. If you completely resistance weld it on and you MIG weld this area, improper repair. End of story. No questions about it. Engineering principles. Your mild steel, 300 Newton meters squared, is 300 megapascals basically, which is 43,500 psi. High strength steel is 550 Newton millimeters squared, which is the blue areas, which is 79,000 psi. Yellow is 1,000 Newton meters squared, is 1,000 megapascals or 145,000 psi, and the red is ultra high strength steel, hot worked, quenched, 1,500 Newton meters, which is 217,000 pounds per square inch. And you can see the entire rocker and B-pillar is made up of this on this particular Mercedes-Benz, just to give you an idea how these vehicles break down. So where do we find the proper repair information? There's a few different websites you can go to. You have your OEM websites. Anybody belong to any of the OEM websites at all? Okay, they can get a little expensive, I'll be honest to you. And they're useful because stuff that's in some of the other providers is not provided. It is provided on the OEM website, but it's not in the other companies that are out there that offer third-party information. So, especially with the German cars. The German cars are very, very restrictive on how they release information or materials, so you might have to go to their website. A lot of times they give you videos on there also. Unfortunately, they can be a little pricey. $25, $30 for the day. Keep it for the year, you're talking a pretty hefty price. ICAR and NASTF.org will give you, NASTF will give you a link to every OEM website. On ICAR's website, you can click on technical information, and in there it'll say OEM information. And you can click on that, it'll give you every single OEM website link so you can get to it. All Data Collision also gives you access to, I would say, probably 95% of the OEM information that is available. I will say that there's some stuff missing from Benz because Benz just won't release it. Plain and simple, they just won't. I know Mitchell's working on one of their programs to add more information to it, and I think CCC just came out with something less than probably like 6 months ago that's supposed to integrate with their estimating system. I viewed some of it, and I was saying to myself, I'm a little unsure about some of the stuff on there because you had to get into the estimate database itself for that car. You couldn't just go onto one particular area. Now, does All Data have some issues with the program? No, it doesn't. We just don't know it. So you have to figure it out as you go along. If anyone's ever been to an OEM website, that can be a little difficult to go through also. So, unfortunately, there's a learning curve. I don't care if you use the OEM website or you use All Data. I'm pretty good with All Data. I'm pretty good with Irwin, which is most of the German Volkswagen cars. I'm good with P-Wiz, which is for Porsche, and I still have trouble finding stuff. The one nice thing about the Germans, though, a lot of times with their programs, you have a VIN. It brings up all the information for that car with all the options. There's a VIN decoder and actually goes into that car, so it's a little bit nicer because you're integrated a little bit with the dealer access that you do that. You cannot find out the history of the car. Don't think that way. You're just finding out the options based on breaking down the website. Does anyone have any questions? I know this was part one of it. We have a part two tomorrow that we get a little bit more, obviously, a little bit more in depth with some stuff. It's not going to be repetitive, but I had to touch base on the beginning stuff with repair standards, repair procedures. I've written a few articles for Hammer and Dolly that dealt with who sets the standards, OEM versus repair procedures. And okay, guys, I appreciate it. Hopefully, if you guys are here tomorrow, you'll see the second part of this. And tomorrow morning, we have the triage class. So hopefully this was informative. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.